Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tim Yoon, and today I want to talk to you about how we can clean up messy SwiftUI views. And so I'm going to go over 3 really easy ways to clean things up. And the first one would be to use computed vars that return a value of some view. Functions that does the same. Some views are returned from the functions, and then using extensions. And as a little bonus treat, I'll talk to you about how to make an animated user instruction when there is an empty list. What we'll do is we'll have users, and there'll be functions to add and delete the users. Okay, so I have a little bit of code written up already to speed things along. We have a user class, or sorry, a user struct that's identifiable. It's got an ID that's a UUID. It's got a variable name, which is blank. And then in a static let example, an array of user, and they're going to be 2 users that are predefined. One's called John, one's called Chloe. And what I did was I put in a couple of photos, John, and this is John, this is Chloe, so that we can have some examples. Okay, now let's look at the content view. I've already created a state variable called users, which is an array of user, and created a single user here using this static let example. Sorry, I think I should call this examples. And then it'll be user.examples.random element that gives you a random element from that array. And it'll be a force unwrap because I know that for sure there'll be at least one element that can be chosen without any fear. And then the body is a navigation stack, list, for each, hstack, text, username. And here we go. We've got a random username called Chloe. And now to make things a little nicer, I think we should put in a navigation title, and we'll call it users. Next, we need a toolbar. And the toolbar will have a button. And the button really is going to be to add a user. Add a user, okay? And the label is going to be image, system name, and we'll say plus, and that'll give us a plus up there. Now, the thing is, this plus is a little small, so hey, let's make it a little bit bigger. What we can do here is just say font and dot title 2. And how do we add a user? Well, we can do this, users dot append user dot examples dot random element, and like that. And so when you do this and you click on this, you'll get random Johns and Chloes in here. Now, just to keep things clean, I'm going to show you how you can clean this up here a little bit. Now, normally the way I code this is I'll just write everything out the first time through, and then I'll go back and clean things up along the way. But for this tutorial example, I'm just going to kind of clean as I go. So this is going to be an add button, right? So, hey, that's an add button. So let's create a computed var called add button, and it'll is of a type sum view. That opaque type is what we need. And now what we have is, instead of the whole button here inside of the main body, we've defined add button as a way of cleaning things up a little bit here. Okay, so now the code still runs just like it did before. A bunch of Johns and Chloes will show up. That's cool. Next, let's work on the list row view, which is right here. So, what can we do with that? Well, we can add in an image, and the image is going to be a user.name. And okay, we got a nice image, but it's too big, so we need to resize it. .resizable, and we'll say it's going to be scaled to fill. And the next thing we want to do is give it a frame. And the frame width could be, let's say, 100, and the height could be 100. Much better now. As you can see, things are updating on the live preview here. And, most profile views have like a circle around them. So let's give it a clip shape. And the clip shape will be a circle. Boom, nice circle is there. And then let's say, let's do even more. Let's put a little border around the image. So we'll say an overlay. And we'll overlay a circle around it, like so. And we got to take the stroke, line width, and we'll say a line width of 2. And that color is a little too dark, so we'll say foreground color is that secondary, and that's better. And so we got this nice thing around it. And let's say we want to make it even nicer and put a shadow around it. And the shadow will have a radius of 4, and x value of x offset of 4, and a y offset of 4. And now we have a little shadow around that. Yeah. Okay. So cool. We got that. But have you noticed this view is getting bigger and bigger and more complicated? So is there a way we can make this nicer? Yes, you know it. We can take all of this out and turn this into a function called a profile view, or let's call it an image rather. And the thing is, it's going to need a user, type user, and sorry, user. So now let's go over here and add a func, and we'll call that a profile image, user, type user, and it's going to return some view. That's the whole key, some view. And boom, we've done that, and we've restored that. And we're keeping all this super tidy, right? Navigation stack list for each H stack, profile image, and text. So now let's do a little bit of stuff around the text. Well, the text, I think it needs to be a little bit nicer. So let's make the font of title, dot title. And so that's bigger, that's nice. Let's give it a little padding on the leading edge. Good, that looks better. And then what we're going to say is font weight, and let's make it bold. Another way to do it would have been just to say dot bold, like so. So that's a little bit better. Okay, that looks really cool. And could we play around with something else to make it even more? We could, but let's stop with that for now. So we're going to call this one, we'll call this a user name. Let's call it that, okay? So this is going to be user name, and it'll need a user, and it'll need a user, just like that. Let's go down here and create a func called user name, user, and it's going to return some view. Right, that's the whole key there, some view. Okay, so now we're keeping this super clean, but what can we do to make this even cleaner? Well, we can just call this whole thing a user row view, like so, and needs a user and a user. And so let's call this func user row view, user, and it's going to return some view, that opaque type again. And here it'll just have this, an H stack of a profile, image view, and user view. Now this is super, super clean. We're keeping this code really clean. And if you look, This is like the single responsibility principle where each thing is doing one thing. This function is doing one thing. It's displaying the user row view. The username is only working on the user's name, and the profile image is only working on the profile image, the add image. Okay, so this is really good. I like it. So what can we do to make this a little bit cleaner even than this? Well, you could take all of this and take it out of the content views like so. And we can just create an extension to the content view and paste it in here. And then you see the code still works beautifully. Content view is very simple, very small, very nice. And then you can have this. And in fact, you can copy and paste this into a separate file if you needed. But I won't do that for the computed var. Okay, so that's a really neat way of following the single responsibility principle of the solid design pattern and keeping things nice and clean. Now, for the bonus, what if you wanted to create an animation that tells the user of this app to click on this button if there are no users? Okay, I'll show you how you can do that. So we'll just fold this view right here and create a Z stack. And we'll put the nav stack right in here. And let me go back here and fold this code a little bit, just like that. That's not what I wanted. Let's do this again. Fold and fold just the nav stack. Very good, thank you. And then here, what we'll say is if the users that is empty, then show this. What should we show? I'm thinking what we could show is some instructions that says like this, text. There are no users. Let's make a V stack. There are no users. Oop, oop. There are no users. And then we'll put another text here and say, please click the plus button to add new user. And I think what we'll do is make this foreground color dot secondary. And let's take a look and see if this works. So if we delete Chloe, oh, we can't delete Chloe. So we got to do something about that. All right, let's create a way to delete Chloe, which is on list. So now that I've expanded the list view, we need to create an on delete, perform, index set, which is an offset. And we'll say users dot remove add offsets, boom, like so. And in fact, we could just say, get rid of this and say $0, just to keep things tidy. All right, so now we should be able to delete it. Indeed, and now once we delete it, there it is. No, there are no users. Please click the plus button to add a new user. And you notice I took the time to do the little escape sequence for the quotations. All right, what if we want to add a little arrow here that points to this area? Well, what we have to do is find an image, or one way to do it is to find an image. So I'm going to go do that. Okay, what I've done is actually spent the time to search the internet for a diagonal arrow, and I've added it to my assets here. And now let me go back to the content view and create that animated arrow. Okay, so here what we'll say is we need a V stack and an H stack, and there'll be an image, and the image is going to be a diagonal arrow. And we need to make this resizable, of course, and we'll say it'll be a .fit. And we're going to create a frame width, and we'll say 100, let's say. And we're going to have to push it to the right, so we'll give it a spacer and another spacer to push it to the top. And boom, that looks pretty decent. But we're going to have to make some changes. For instance, we're going to have to make it offset. And we can offset the x coordinate by -40, the y coordinate to +20, and that moves the arrow over to the appropriate spot. And now we're gonna do some opacity manipulation, and we're gonna say if the opacity is animating, and we'll say if it is animating, we'll say it's 1.0, else it's 0.5. And we want a scale effect also. And the scale effect is animating. We'll say it's 1.0, otherwise it'll be 0.5. And then we'll say animation. And here we'll have a dot linear, let's say, duration. Just dot linear duration 1.0, and we'll make it repeat forever. And if I can make this is animating. So is animating is a state var right here. And let's take a look. Well, heck, it's not animating, right? So what we have to do then is turn this value to true. So how do we do that? I say on appear, we're going to say is animating equals true. And dot on disappear, we're going to say is animating equals false. And now we have this animation going that looks pretty decent. Okay, so now that's working. If you click on the plus button, Chloe shows up and that message disappears, and John will show up and that message disappears. So this is good. And let's do some cleaning at this point, some cleaning. So we're going to call this whole thing the user instructions, right? And then we can go over here and go var user instructions, and it's going to be some view, and we're going to put that right in there. And you know, it looks pretty good, but again, there's too many things going on here. So we'll call this user instructions, instruction text. And so we could just call this var user instruction text, some view. We'll put that in there. We'll call this user instruction text. And then this thing right here, I think we can call that the animated diagonal arrow, or just an arrow, I suppose. And so we'll call that animated arrow. And we'll say var animated arrow, some view. And there you go. We got the animated arrow. And I'm gonna have to say return the Z stack. All right, very good. So Looks pretty good, pretty good. All right, so we have cleaned our code up very nicely so we can understand what the heck is going on. And then we can just fold these things also so that it's a little bit easier to read code later on. That's folded, it's all folded, nice and neat. You can go back and change things if you want to. But you know, if somebody comes in to read your code, hey, it looks pretty easy to read actually. You know, there's a navigation stack, it's a list for each user row view, you know, these things, and then you can say, hey, what is this user row view? It'll take you to the definition right here to the user row view. You can open this up, take a look, and say, okay, it's really clean. So I hope you like this little lesson on how to get your views to be nice and clean. If you can imagine, all of this code embedded into this structure would be quite difficult to follow. But if you have this kind of a overview kind of structure and then going to each of these individual vars and functions, it makes things a lot easier to understand. All right, like and subscribe, and we'll see you again in another cool episode later.